Not everyone is welcome to church in America currently, but I think Jesus can fix that. Not everyone has an open door into Jesus' church. Man, I love so many things about living here in this country. I'm grateful that we have freedom here. I'm grateful for the sacrifice it took to get that freedom. I'm really thankful that we have religious freedom here. So my daughter's in 6th grade and she came home from school the other day saying, "Dad, did you know we had to fight a war to get religious freedom in this country?" I did know that at some point, but thank you for reminding me because I was starting to forget. We need the 6th graders in our lives to remind us of all the important information that we're starting to forget right now. But yeah, we had to fight a war to get religious freedom, and now we have it. That's awesome. I'm so grateful. But as I observe the state of the church in this country right now, there's just one thing that really bothers me. Not everyone is welcome to church here. Not everyone has an open door into Jesus' church. But I'm not trying to stir anything up. Just stick with me for a second. Jesus already had a plan for making sure that every non-Christian was welcome into his church. And we've come to call that plan the priesthood of all believers. And that idea comes from 1 Peter 2 and Hebrews 4 and many other places in the Bible. But what Jesus meant was that every single one of his followers was a minister of the gospel. So really, all Christians are supposed to be priests. But don't think modern priest with like the cool white collar, although I've always wanted to wear one of those because I wear all black anyway. But think Old Testament priest in the temple in Jesus' time. So in the Old Testament, there was a tribe of priests called the Levites, and their job was to take care of the temple, to polish the gold bowls in the temple, to make sacrifices, to run the worship services there, and to keep the doors of the temple open. It was their job to open the doors. So that's the priesthood of all believers. And if you're a Christian, you're a part of it. This is what this passage means in 1 Peter 2:9. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Man, such a cool passage. This was Jesus' plan for how the church would keep the doors open to non-Christians. But here's the problem. We don't do that in America. Now, maybe this is the case in other countries as well, but I live here, so I've only observed it here. In America, we traded that priesthood for a much smaller group of church leaders. We basically outsourced our jobs as the priesthood of all believers to a very small group of vocational pastors and church staff and key leaders. And that fault doesn't land on them, though. We, all the Christians living here, are the ones that have tried to get that tiny group of people to do the entire job of the priesthood of believers. Now, I think this worked fine for a while, but it just hasn't opened up enough doors. If you live in, say, Seattle or even Dallas, a place with a lot of churches, there are really only a few doors into the church in those cities because those doors have been opened up by that small group of individuals within the church. And you've seen how this works. You've got maybe the traditional church in this part of town, and that door is being opened up by this group of leaders. And then on the other side of town, you have maybe the newer, younger church, and it looks different, and that door is being opened up by this group of leaders. And if you fit in with that cultural or socioeconomic group, then you feel pretty welcome to church. And by the way, if you're a part of that small group of leaders working hard to open doors into Jesus' church, thank you. That is awesome. Let's bring back the priesthood of all believers, where every believer can open a door into Jesus' church. There are 200 million Christians in this country. If we all open a door, then all of a sudden, every non-Christian is welcome to church. We could open a door on every single street in this country. Here's the exciting thing. The door to the church can be anywhere, and any person in this massive priesthood of believers can open it. Think about this. The front door of the church could even be the front door of your house. Let's open the door and invite a non-Christian in. An organization called 2414 did a study that found that 98% of believers in America will die without ever sharing their faith with a single person. That was not Jesus' plan. We can't outsource all of our jobs to just vocational church leaders. We need to all open the doors and let somebody in. So imagine this holy priesthood, as Peter put it, spread out all over this country, and it's our jobs to open the doors to the temple and let the people in. But because of what Jesus did on the cross, now there's a new twist. Now the doors of the temple are spread out on every street. Because the door to the church can be the physical door of your house. As I've been thinking about this verse from the Bible just keeps coming to mind. I've heard it over and over, and it's the passage where Jesus says, I stand at the door and I knock. And I've always thought that was such a beautiful, poetic image in Scripture. And I've often thought of it as a picture of Jesus pursuing an unbeliever, saying, let me into your life to bring salvation. But it's not. That's Jesus knocking on the door of a church. You know where this story comes from? So, it's in Revelation 3. John the Apostle has a vision of Jesus speaking to a lukewarm church in a city called Laodicea. And he says, you're neither hot nor cold, you're lukewarm, you're complacent, you think you have it all together, but I'm coming to you, lovingly reprimanding you like a father. Jesus says, I'm reprimanding you because I love you. And here's what that fatherly reprimand sounded like. He said, I stand at the door and I knock. History tells us that Laodicea was a really rich city. They were so rich that when an earthquake hit that area, they declined to get help from the empire. They're like, no, we're good. We don't need anything. We're fine here. So imagine this, a city in Jesus' time that has running water and spas and gyms and theaters. They had everything, and they thought they had it all together, and they didn't need anyone, and the church there was comfortable. Does any of this sound familiar? A church in a rich place, a mindset that we don't need anybody, fierce individualism, but Jesus speaks to us in a loving, fatherly reprimand and says, I stand at the door and I knock. Jesus is standing at the door of the church, saying, open the doors. So let's do that together. Let's open the doors. Let's open our doors.